8. Chapter 17. Coach in Harbor Terminus. In his clean room in the dirty Imenham house, Estha, not old, not young, sat on his bed in the dark. He sat very straight. Shoulders squared. Hands in his lap. As though he was next in line for some sort of inspection. Or waiting to be arrested. The ironing was done. It sat in a neat pile on the ironing board. He had done Rahel's clothes as well. It was raining steadily. Night rain. That lonely drummer practicing his role long after the rest of the band has gone to bed. In the side midden, by the separate men's needs entrance, the chrome tail fins of the old Plymouth gleamed momentarily in the lightning. For years after Chaco left for Canada, baby Kochama had had it washed regularly. Twice a week for a small fee, Kocha Maria's brother-in-law, who drove the yellow municipal garbage truck in Kottayam, would drive into Imenham, heralded by the stench of Kottayam's refuse, which lingered long after he had gone, to divest his sister-in-law of her salary and drive the Plymouth around to keep its battery charged. When she took up television, baby Kochama dropped the car and the garden simultaneously. Tutti frutti. With every monsoon, the old car settled more firmly into the ground. Like an angular, arthritic hen settling stiffly on her clutch of eggs. With no intention of ever getting up. Grass grew around its flat tires. The Paradise Pickles and Preserves signboard rotted and fell inward like a collapsed crown. A creeper stole a look at itself in the remaining mottled half of the cracked driver's mirror. A sparrow lay dead on the back seat. She had found her way in through a hole in the windscreen, tempted by some seat sponge for her nest. She never found her way out. No one noticed her panicked car window appeals. She died on the back seat, with her legs in the air. Like a joke. Kocha Maria was asleep on the drawing room floor, curled into a coma in the flickering light of the television that was still on. American policemen were stuffing a handcuffed teenaged boy into a police car. There was blood spattered on the pavement. The police car lights flashed and a siren wailed a warning. A wasted woman, the boy's mother perhaps, watched fearfully from the shadows. The boy struggled. They had used a mosaic blur on the upper part of his face so that he couldn't sue them. He had caked blood all over his mouth and down the front of his t-shirt like a red bib. His baby pink lips were lifted off his teeth in a snarl. He looked like a werewolf. He screamed through the car window at the camera. "I'm 15 years old and I wish I were a better person than I am. But I'm not. Do you want to hear my pathetic story?" He spat at the camera, and a missile of spit splattered over the lens and dribbled down. Baby Kochama was in her room, sitting up in bed, filling in a Listerine discount coupon that offered a 2 rupee rebate on their new 500 ml bottle and 2,000 rupee gift vouchers to the lucky winners of their lottery. Giant shadows of small insects swooped along the walls and ceiling. To get rid of them, baby Kochama had put out the lights and lit a large candle in a tub of water. The water was already thick with singed carcasses. The candlelight accentuated her rouged cheeks and painted mouth. Her mascara was smudged. Her jewelry gleamed. She tilted the coupon towards the candle. "Which brand of mouthwash do you usually use?" "Listerine," baby Kochama wrote in a hand-grown spidery with age. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy 139. State the reasons for your preference. She didn't hesitate. Tangy taste. Fresh breath. She had learned the smart, snappy language of television commercials. She filled in her name and lied about her age. Under occupation, she wrote, ornamental gardening, dip, rock. USA. She put the coupon into an envelope marked Reliable Medicos, Kottayam. It would go with Kocha Maria in the morning, when she went into town on her best bakery cream bun expedition. Baby Kochama picked up her maroon diary, which came with its own pen. She turned to June 19th and made a fresh entry. Her manner was routine. She wrote, "I love you, I love you." Every page in the diary had an identical entry. She had a case full of diaries with identical entries. Some said more than just that. Some had the day's accounts, to-do lists, snatches of favorite dialogue from favorite soaps. But even these entries all began with the same words, "I love you, I love you." Father Mulligan had died 4 years ago of viral hepatitis, in an ashram north of Rishikesh. His years of contemplation of Hindu scriptures had led initially to theological curiosity, but eventually to a change of faith. 15 years ago, Father Mulligan became a Vaishnavite. A devotee of Lord Vishnu. He stayed in touch with baby Kochama even after he joined the ashram. He wrote to her every Diwali and sent her a greeting card every New Year. A few years ago, he sent her a photograph of himself addressing a gathering of middle-class Punjabi widows at a spiritual camp. The women were all in white with their sari pillows drawn over their heads. Father Mulligan was in saffron. A yolk addressing a sea of boiled eggs. His white beard and hair were long, but combed and groomed. A saffron Santa with votive ash on his forehead. Baby Kochama couldn't believe it. It was the only thing he ever sent her that she hadn't kept. She was offended by the fact that he had actually, eventually, renounced his vows, but not for her. For other vows. It was like welcoming someone with open arms, only to have him walk straight past into someone else's. Father Mulligan's death did not alter the text of the entries in Baby Kochama's diary, simply because as far as she was concerned it did not alter his availability. If anything, she possessed him in death in a way that she never had while he was alive. At least her memory of him was hers. Wholly hers. Savagely, fiercely, hers. Not to be shared with faith, far less with competing konuns, and kosadus or whatever it was they called themselves. Koswamis. His rejection of her in life, gentle and compassionate though it was neutralized by death. In her memory of him, he embraced her. Just her. In the way a man embraces a woman. Once he was dead, Baby Kochama stripped Father Mulligan of his ridiculous saffron robes and reclothed him in the Coca-Cola cassock she so loved. Her senses feasted, between changes, on that lean, concave, Christ-like body. She snatched away his begging bowl, pedicured his horny Hindu soles and gave him back his comfortable sandals. She reconverted him into the high-stepping camel that came to lunch on Thursdays. And every night, night after night, year after year, in diary after diary after diary, she wrote, I love you, I love you. She put the pen back into the pen loop and shut the diary. She took off her glasses, dislodged her dentures with her tongue, severing the strands of saliva that attached them to her gums like the sagging strings of a harp, and dropped them into a glass of Listerine. They sank to the bottom and sent up little bubbles, like prayers. Her nightcap. A clenched smile soda. Tangy teeth in the morning. Baby Kochama settled back on her pillow and waited to hear Rahel come out of Esther's room. They had begun to make her uneasy, both of them. A few mornings ago she had opened her window for a breath of fresh air and caught them red-handed in the act of returning from somewhere. Clearly they had spent the whole night out. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy 140. Together. Where could they have been? What and how much did they remember? When would they leave? What were they doing, sitting together in the dark for so long? She fell asleep propped up against her pillows, thinking that perhaps, over the sound of the rain and the television, she hadn't heard Esther's door open. That Rahel had gone to bed long ago. She hadn't. Rahel was lying on Esther's bed. She looked thinner lying down. Younger. Smaller. Her face was turned towards the window beside the bed. Slanting rain hit the bars of the window grill and shattered into a line spray over her face and her smooth bare arm. Her soft, sleeveless t-shirt was a glowing yellow in the dark. The bottom half of her, in blue jeans, melted into the darkness. It was a little cold. A little wet. A little quiet. The air. But what was there to say? From where he sat, at the end of the bed, Esther, without turning his head, could see her. Faintly outlined. The sharp line of her jaw. Her collarbones like wings that spread from the base of her throat to the ends of her shoulders. A bird held down by skin. She turned her head and looked at him. He sat very straight, waiting for the inspection. He had finished the ironing. She was lovely to him. Her hair. Her cheeks. Her small, clever-looking hands. His sister. A nagging sound started up in his head. The sound of passing trains. The light and shade that falls on you if you have a window seat. He sat even straighter. Still, he could see her. Grown into their mother's skin. The liquid glint of her eyes in the dark. Her small straight nose. Her mouth, full-lipped. Something wounded-looking about it. As though it was flinching from something. As though long ago someone, a man with rings, had hit her across it. A beautiful, hurt mouth. Their beautiful mother's mouth, Esther thought. Amu's mouth. That had kissed his hand through the barred train window. First class, on the Madras mail to Madras. By Esther. God bless, Amu's mouth had said. Amu's trying not to cry mouth. The last time he had seen her. She was standing on the platform of the Cochin Harbor terminus, her face turned up to the train window. Her skin gray, wan, robbed of its luminous sheen by the neon station light. Daylight stopped by trains on either side. Long corks that kept the darkness bottled in. The Madras mail. The flying Rani. Rahel held by Amu's hand. A mosquito on a leash. A refugee stick insect in bata sandals. An airport ferry at a railway station. Stamping her feet on the platform, unsettling clouds of settled station filth. Until Amu shook her and told her to stop it, and she stoppeted. Around them the hostling jostling crowd. Scurrying, hurrying, buying, selling, luggage, trundling, porter, paying, children, shitting, people, spitting, coming, going, begging, bargaining, reservation checking. Echoing station sounds. Hawkers selling coffee. Tea. Gaunt children, blonde with malnutrition, selling smutty magazines and food they couldn't afford to eat themselves. Melted chocolates, cigarette sweets, orange drinks, lemon drinks, Coca-Cola Fanta ice cream rose milk, pink skin dolls, rattles, love in Tokyos, hollow plastic parakeets full of sweets with heads you could unscrew, yellow-rimmed red sunglasses, toy watches with the time painted on them, a cart full of defective toothbrushes. The Coach in Harbor Terminus. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy 141. Gray in the station light. Hollow people. Homeless. Hungry. Still touched by last year's famine. Their revolution postponed for the time being by Comrade EMS. Numbudaripod, Soviet stooge. Running dog. The former apple of Peking's eye. The air was thick with flies. A blind man without eyelids and eyes as blue as faded jeans, his skin pitted with smallpox scars, chatted to a leper without fingers, taking dexterous drags from scavenged cigarette stubs that lay beside him in a heap. What about you? When did you move here? As though they had had a choice. As though they had picked this for their home from a vast array of posh housing estates listed in a glossy pamphlet. A man sitting on a red weighing machine unstrapped his artificial leg, knee downwards, with a black boot and nice white sock painted on it. The hollow, knob-led calf was pink, like proper calves should be. When you recreate the image of man, why repeat God's mistakes? Inside it he stored his ticket, his towel, his stainless steel tumbler, his smells, his secrets, his love, his hope, his madness, his infinite joy. His real foot was bare. He bought some tea for his tumbler. An old lady vomited a lumpy pool and went on with her life. The station world. Society's circus. Where, with the rush of commerce, despair came home to roost and hardened slowly into resignation. But this time, for Ammo and her two-egg twins, there was no Plymouth window to watch it through. No net to save them as they vaulted through the circus air. Pack your things and leave, Chaco had said, stepping over a broken door. A handle in his hand. And Ammo, though her hands were trembling, hadn't looked up from her unnecessary hemming. A tin of ribbons lay open on her lap. But Rahel had looked up and seen that Chaco had disappeared and left a monster in his place. A thick-lipped man with rings, cool and white, bought scissors cigarettes from a platform vendor. 3 packs. To smoke in the train corridor. For men of action satisfaction. He was Estha's escort. A family friend who happened to be going to Madras. Mr. Kurian Mathan. Since there was going to be a grown-up with Estha anyway, Mama Chi said there was no need to waste money on another ticket. Baba was buying Madras Calcutta. Amma was buying time. She too had to pack her things and leave. To start a new life, in which she could afford to keep her children. Until then, it had been decided that one twin could stay in Ijnanam. Not both. Together they were trouble. Not S and I Ritsai. They had to be separated. Maybe they're right, Amma's whisper said as she packed his trunk and hold all. Maybe a boy does need a baba. The thick-lipped man was in the queue next to Estha's. He said he'd try and change seats with someone once the train started. For now he left the little family alone. He knew that a hellish angel hovered over them. Went where they went, stopped where they stopped. Dripping wax from a bent candle. Everybody knew. It had been in the papers. The news of Sophie Mole's death, of the police encounter with a paravan charged with kidnapping and murder. Of the subsequent Communist Party siege of Paradise Pickles and Preserves, led by Imanem's own crusader for justice and spokesman of the oppressed. Comrade K.N.M. Pillai claimed that the management had implicated the paravan in a false police case because he was an active member of the Communist Party. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy 142. That they wanted to eliminate him for indulging in lawful union activities. All that had been in the papers. The official version. Of course the thick-lipped man with rings had no idea about the other version. The one in which a posse of touchable policemen crossed the Meenakal River, sluggish and swollen with recent rain, and picked their way through the wet undergrowth, clumping into the heart of darkness. Chapter